being 7 is definitely not something that you want to see mixed with this low strength. So the back attacks are going to be real, but our HP is pretty solid. So the enemies we're going to be looking for right now, barring the sword being here, is going to be slimes.
All right, but they're opening up the things in the treasury, and it seems like we have an herb and some starting gold. And so also, if there happens to be a town nearby, there might be an opportunity for the folks to get their hands on a copper sword or a hand axe or something like that, and that could definitely also give them a big boost right at the beginning, but we'll see what's actually outside the castle.
Yeah, absolutely, and having that herb for a little bit of safety is good, but there is a town just outside of the castle. Looks like ArchfieldMonk making the attempt to save his gold in case he dies on the way. I can't really say that I blame him there, but it is Garenham, and there is a hand axe here, so we have 15 attack power, so added to their total. So this is not going to be as bad as we were originally thinking.
Indeed, and yeah, as ArchfieldMonk, since he got a high roll of 740 there, saving that gold definitely seems like a reasonable thing to do, but he'll immediately get a chance to spend it. It looks like Ryguy is also picking up and equipping the Dragon Scale, which is another good thing to do with a little bit of leftover gold.
And ArchfieldMonk also picking up the leather armor as well. That leather armor adding 4 defense to his total makes things just that much safer for him.
The advantage of getting a high roll on the gold in the throne room there for ArchfieldMonk. But then it looks like there was a magician outside that Ryguy was able to dispatch, now using the hand axe. And we're going to get our first level up. Looks like there was only 1 strength in that first level. So still a bit of just grinding on these very easy level zone 0 enemies. It appears we had a Drakey, there was a magician, now there's a Magidrakey, but all of those guys, assuming they don't have any special spells or attacks, will be enemies that these folks can take down with the equipment that they have here at the start.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a very friendly opening zone, it seems. Magidrakys without any special abilities are going to be pretty vital here. 11 power on that level, 7 speed, 5 hit points, 15 magic, and we also picked up the spell of return. So, yeah, it's not too bad of a start here, really.
Yeah, with that extra attack power on level 3, they should be able to start taking on some of the enemies who are in Zone 1 and Zone 2. ArchfieldMonk ran into a skeleton just a few steps south of the castle, which he's probably not quite ready yet. But if Ryguy ends up going a little bit farther to the south, he could probably take those guys out, but at the same time, a Magidrakey to get him to level 4 will give him that much more cushion before he ventures a little bit farther afield.
Ryguy picking up 1 speed, or 1 strength 9 speed, 13 hit points. I missed the MP there. But MP is not really a big deal here at this point, since we don't have anything really to use it with.
And the agility started off really low. It's starting to recover, but at 23, it's still not super great, so probably still don't want to travel very far from the castle. Also, we did see people peek into the cave that was on the screen. It was the Staff of Rain cave, and so eventually when they get the Silver Heart, they'll need to return there in order to trade it in for the Staff of Rain.
And we see some fire here on these tier 2 enemies. The Scorpion having Dragon Lord 2 breath, and the Skeleton having what is referred to as the Baby breath. So we're probably not going to be seeing our runners take down too many of those, but ArchfieldMonk did manage to get one, it looks like. I think I saw 16 experience gain there.
And it also looks like, other than that little patch of swamp that they had to go through to get to Garenham, it's pretty friendly terrain. They have some hills just to the south, so if they're just trying to grind a few enemies here at the start, they've got the higher encounter rate that they can get on those hills tiles. And this skeleton has been pretty nice to Ryguy, not using the special attack for the most part. And so he manages to take that out, get another 25 experience, and continues to start looking around.
Yeah, these are the races that I really like. ArchfieldMonk taking down Scorpions, keeping the experience relatively close. But Ryguy with a slight experience lead, but that doesn't make too big of a difference here, as that can be made up relatively quickly.
Yeah, neck and neck, and assuming that both of them managed to kill their respective enemies, it looks like we're going to have almost identical timing for getting level 5 on both sides.
5 power, 2 speed, 1 hit point, and 15 more MP. So the MP is being pretty generous this seed so far.
Ironically, all they have is return, so they can return to the castle 7 times with all their MP.
Yep, I would imagine that will see them continue to grind the area around here. Well, Ryguy making a liar out of me, he's going to go ahead and try to get some exploration done. Its agility is still a little low. Not really a favorite to run away from this knight.
Yeah, I agree. The low agility kind of makes it unattractive to try to travel too much farther afield right now. But I think Ryguy in general, I feel like plays a little bit on the aggressive side typically. So going out and taking a look to see if he could find anything. Obviously, since Garenham is right here at the start, whoever does get a key will not only have access to the 4 chests that are in Tanagal, but also the 3 chests that are in the back of Garenham, as well as both of those basements. So finding a key becomes more of a top priority given the Garenham nearby start.
Yeah, absolutely, and I can't really say that I blame Ryguy for trying to venture out. I mean, level 4 or level 5 stats, they're not exactly what I would call abysmal. He's pretty average here, and so I mean, this is a good play on his part. Just trying to get some exploration done. He does find a dark cave. Looks like it's going to be Swamp South.
And without the outside spell, he's just going to go ahead and try to walk on through. And so depending upon what encounters he gets, we may or may not get a chance to see what might be on either a second continent or somewhere else in the world, or he might just die to a gold man.
Yeah, that gold man with baby breath. So that's the second case of baby breath that we've seen. It's not too big of a deal. ArchfieldMonk has made level 6 at this point, putting our MP at 70, which puts us relatively close to the MP that's needed for the Dragon Lord. So once again, with the MP being really generous, he has 51 HP, 34 agility is a little bit more manageable as well.
And now we see ArchfieldMonk starting to branch out a little bit farther to discover that a Druid has the sleep spell as well as Dragon Lord 2 Breath, and that combination is often known as the Wombo combo, and that will quickly send you back to Tanagal Castle.
Indeed, and Ryguy discovering that Magi Drakes have the Heal More spell here, but this hand axe is going to make short work of it.
I forgot to take a note when they were getting the hand axe. Were there any other kind of medium tier items that they might want to pick up in Garenham? Ryguy obviously could go for the leather armor, but it's not that huge of a difference right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I did happen to see half plate there, and there was also a broadsword there. There wasn't any in-game equipment there, though.
So it seems like both of the players are trying to branch out a little bit further to the west. It did seem like if they try to go to the east, they kind of quickly come up against a barrier, and so a lot of the open area is out there. But I think ArchfieldMonk might be further south, and Ryguy might be further north right now. And Archfield can see a town across the way, but one of the new features in the latest version of the Randomizer is rivers on the overworld terrain, and it looks like it's across a river, and there is no bridge to get across right there. So he's going to have to revisit to try to figure out where that town is.
So that town is going to be just west of the Swamp Cave entrance that Ryguy was at. That's actually relatively close to the castle. And Ryguy continuing to search down here. Looks like he's going to nope out of that and head north a little bit. That'll put him right around where ArchfieldMonk is if he can get away. Alright, and he does. So, that little patch of swamp that's on the north side of Ryguy's screen right now is just west of the swamp cave there.
I see. Alright, so if he gets a look and sees that town, yeah, now he has a much better idea. And he's also running into the Star Wyvern. The Star Wyvern did have the hurt spell, but when it chooses not to use the hurt spell, then it's going to really lay some damage on these folks with their small defense points.
Yeah, absolutely. And Star Wyvern being an end-game level enemy, definitely not going to be seeing too many of them slain at this point. Our attack power is not quite high enough to venture out against them.
And it looks like Ryguy is going to content himself with hanging out here in Zone 1 and 2, fighting enemies like Metal Scorpions. If he can get 4 or 5 more enemies kind of that caliber, he'll probably be able to get his way up to level 7. ArchfieldMonk is getting really close.
Yep, this fight here will do it.
Let's hope he can get a spell.
1 strength, 5 speed, 1 hit point, 3 magic, so not much to write home about there.
Indeed. So after a pretty fast start, now all of a sudden they've settled into a bit of a slower mid-game. The agility is up to 39. It's almost good enough at level 7 to run from most enemies. Just a few more agility points and even some Sharlock tier enemies, they'd start becoming favorites to run away from.
Yeah, absolutely. The agility is, I wouldn't say being super nice, but it's definitely what I would call average at this point. And yeah, strength very, very low at level 7. Only 27 strength, but this is a strength HP gains, so we're going to see some strength gains as we progress further through.
And I still can't get over the magic points just kind of trolling the players. 73 magic points and the only spell you know is return. It's something, yeah, the game manages to do. Randomizer, good job.
And ArchfieldMonk finding Swamp South as well. Just straight up nopes out of that. He knows that there's a town right over here, so let's go check that out first. And there's also
it looks like there's another cave. Yeah. Okay, this just got interesting. 2 more locations to be found now.
And it looks like that's Tablet, which he just immediately nopes out of.
I forgot if ArchfieldMonk bought a torch earlier or not.
I don't believe he did.
And sadly, the town winds up being Hawk's Nest, and so he's going to nope out of there as well.
And he's going to swag strat the Tablet cave here, doing it in the dark. In my opinion, this is one of the harder caves to do in the dark.
And most dangerous caves, because since there's no enemies in there, if you get lost, there's no way to get your way out other than navigating and bonking against the walls. But it looks like he has successfully made it down to the chest, which contains 557 gold. So that's pretty interesting. If he really wanted some half-plate armor, he could always redive the Tablet Cave, grab the gold again, and then cast Return and go get it, probably.
Yeah, I think it's still a little early in the seed to play to see a play like that. Just because the defense point difference is going to be 12 defense. That'll put you in range for some enemies, but we haven't really seen any of those enemies like the Wolf Lord or anything like that. So I would imagine we're not going to see that. He is going to check the spike tile though.
And Metal Scorpion, that was one of the enemies that was in kind of the good zone that Ryguy was grinding to get his level 7. And so I wonder if Hawk's Nest is going to be the same kind of zone 2 enemy set of enemies that are just on the random tiles. Oh, nope. There's a Rogue Scorpion as well. Well, if they ever get hurt more, that could be a good enemy.
And we see a stone man here, so that's a pretty friendly spike tile. They get sleep or heal more. They're in pretty good position to take those guys on with this MP count.
Yeah, I agree. So we just really got to hope that some of these useful spells are going to start showing up. Every level they get, the odds get a lot higher that we're going to see something good. And ArchfieldMonk is probably going to pop into Garen to, I imagine, buy some herbs and torches, I imagine. We'll see.
Meanwhile, Ryguy is searching north of the area over there just to kind of see what's over there, but runs into a poltergeist with the grumpy breath.
So Poltergeist, and I think, was it a Druin, is the other one that we've seen with Dragonlord 2 Breath so far in the seed, who also had sleep.
Yep, and Scorpions also have it as well. It looks like it's only a 25% chance, though.
And yeah, Ryguy just managed to one-shot a Scorpion, and so even with a relatively low strength, the hand axe being just enough to take out some of these enemies, that's helping him progress slowly but surely towards level 8. And so managing to try to do some exploring, but still picking up some decent experience for this level and attack power as he goes.
Absolutely. And ArchfieldMonk ran into an Axe Knight that has Hurt More and Sleep. So that's going to be a little bit tougher of an enemy.
But it's useful for him to know early on in the seed that an Axe Knight, which is usually a pretty favorable enemy if you end up finding it on a grind tile, for example, in the Swamp Cave, might not actually be someone that you want to tangle with.
Absolutely. And I mean, if you get hurt more and you hit that Axe Knight, you're going to be killing it about 80% of the time on first try with hurt more. But there's always that chance that he'll just survive it, put you to sleep, and then your day is ruined.
Yeah, and even in the times where you wake up, like, one of the things that's so nice about an Axe Knight tile is that it's such a fast grind typically, but even if 1 in 4 or 5 times you get put to sleep and it just ends up costing you time and then you spend more of your magic healing up afterwards, it takes what would have been a really terrific grind and turns it into just kind of an okay, mediocre one.
Yeah, I would say it's definitely going to be on the same level as a Stone Man if that does end up being on a spike tile, just because Stone Men have so much HP.
Yeah, and I guess it remains to be seen. I guess we did see at least one swing out of the Stone Man, but perhaps it ends up having some abilities. We'll find out later on in the seed. But at this point, both players seem to be content with gaining some experience as they explore, but also taking some deaths as they try to push the limits and see if they can find somewhere that's going to help them pick up a key or something else that's going to break open the seed.
Yeah, I think at this point, personally, what I think the play would just be to pop out to the other side of Swamp, just to see if there's a town nearby. And I think Fry guys have the same mindset here, because we still haven't seen Remoldar yet, and well, we've explored a little bit of the first continent, and it doesn't seem like it's super huge. It does open up a little north of the Swamp Cave, but I think this is a really good play.
And so on the second side, Ryguy sees another cave, and a Drakey will be an easy enemy that's not going to block him from getting there. Even the Wraith, he should be able to... Oh, nope, he can't take it out because the Wraith also has Dragonlord 2 Breath. One step away from finding out what that cave was.
Yeah, with them having limited healing resources, this much DL2 breath round is definitely going to pose a problem.
I imagine Ryguy is going to give it at least one more try. Yeah, don't know, obviously, the boundaries of that zone where the Wraith may be out on the other side, but I guess at 39 agility, he's actually a favorite to run from the Wraith, so now that he knows that it has that attack, if he sees one again, he can probably just run from it. So let's hope we can get through the Swamp Cave and possibly make it out to that other cave this time.
Yeah, absolutely. 39 agility does put them as a favorite to run from those guys, but we all know agility in this game can be pretty finicky sometimes.
Yeah, especially when you're up against an enemy who can easily one-shot you. But meanwhile, ArchfieldMonk has once again settled into a grind, and as a result is about 100 experience ahead. Since he's focused on grinding enemies he knows he can kill, and he'll be coming up on level 8 in relatively short order.
And Ryguy picking up the grave here at that cave that we had just mentioned. So he's going to be able to get the top 3 chests. We'll see what it holds.
So Ryguy, just put him to sleep. I was about to say, Ryguy is choosing to fight the Spectre. I think I would have chosen to run, because the 3 chests, I think, offer a huge potential good thing, and fighting the Spectre puts it all into question. It took him about a minute or 2 to walk this far to get into the grave right over near the chests, and now all of a sudden that's at risk. But he does manage to successfully defeat the Spectre, and we'll get a look at least one of the chests.
And he picks up a fighter's ring, so there's 2 extra attack power, a dragon scale, which isn't really useful, and a fairy water. So unfortunately nothing of note there.
Alright, but he has the information. He knows the location that he's going to have to come back to if he wants to dive the grave later after he gets keys, but that just adds one more thing to their list. Whoever gets a key all of a sudden is going to have a big advantage, because there's a bunch of things for them to go after.
Yeah, absolutely. And Star Wyvern crawling around just east of the grave there. So sent back to the castle again for Ryguy. Meanwhile, ArchfieldMonk manages to dodge the wolf casting hurt, and we did pick up the heal spell at level 8 as well.
Yeah, the heal spell is pretty big. Unfortunately, like you said, with all the Dragon Lord 2 breath, until they get more hit points so they can actually survive that, it's still going to be a struggle at times, but being able to heal is a pretty big deal. And so Ryguy is not too far away from getting level 8, so it'll be nice when he's able to pick that up as well. And the wolf that ArchfieldMonk was just fighting is one of those enemies who's kind of... especially if Archfield... Yeah, if they start finding some more of these mid-tier enemies, then maybe you do want to try to get a little bit more defense points to make sure that your heal is going to out-heal some of the attacks that are coming in.
Yeah, we definitely see a town on ArchfieldMonk's side. Unfortunately, this rogue scorpion giving him a little bit of trouble on the run, but he does get away. And here's Cole. So we're going to see what is 4 tiles south of the bath here in Cole.
A flame sword and a large shield are some very nice items that are for sale that we might see runners coming back for in a bit.
And the token has been found. So the token being one of the 3 necessary story items. So it's the Stones of Sunlight, the heart, or the silver heart, which you trade in for the Staff of Rain in order to make the rainbow drop in order to access the final dungeon.
And we did already see Staff of Rain Cave just to the south of the start, but eventually we'll have to find the Jerk Cave, the guy who gives you the rainbow drop, once you get those other 3 story items. And once again, the Axe Knight with the Wombo combo is going to send someone back home. And a Spark Over Bridge has been sighted over on Ryguy's side. It's unclear if that's actually attached to land that he's going to be able to walk to, but it's always fun to see a bridge to a single tile. And just as a reminder, tonight there are a couple more tournament matches coming up at both 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock. And after the conclusion of those matches, we will be all done with week 3. Oh, a Warlock also has Dragonward 2 Breath. I think that brings the total up to 7 enemies we've seen so far with that capability. This is a pretty rough seed in terms of an enemy set. My goodness.
Yes, indeed. And Ryguy also finding coal as well. We'll see his flame sword and large shield for sale. And he has also picked up his token as well.
But I was starting to say before the spicy breath was that after the conclusion of all the matches today, we will have the drawing for next week's opponents going into round 4. We've got a 5-round Swiss to start off this tournament. And since we had, so many competitors, those who were in 3 and 2 or better will advance. And since these were 2-0 runners, whoever wins this one is basically guaranteed to advance into the brackets.
Yep, and it'll be quite the round to see. Lots of very, very talented runners in this tournament. Lots of skill being shown here. We have some newer members to the community that are just absolutely slaughtering the SRL board. It's going to be a very, very exciting tournament.
Yeah, sure enough. Like if ArchfieldMonk wins this match, he'll have only done 3 matches, the 3 matches in the tournament, and he'll have already beaten 3 opponents, including Ryguy, who he is a little bit ahead of in terms of both equipment and experience. It's still very early into this seed, but he's definitely holding his own, and so that would put him, very high in the leaderboards to get things started. A lot of new people joining the community, I think partly as a result of the exposure that RPG Limit Break has given to Dragon Warrior Randomizer, which is great. It's a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you have if you feel that you love this guy in game as well, we do have a Discord, and there's also a GitHub to download the randomizer as well, so that way that you can give it a shot as well.
ArchfieldMonk has a Star Wyvern on his screen once again. I feel like thus far, the Star Wyvern might be kind of the fun police of the seed that might be responsible for more deaths than anyone. The Axe Knight is probably more dangerous, but the Star Wyvern seems to have appeared in a few more zones thus far, at least so far as I can recall.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that statement. These Star Wyverns are living up to their nickname of Jerkbird this seed.
And I haven't been paying good enough attention to the map, but it feels like we're getting closer to having seen a good majority, or what feels like a good majority, of the directions you could go on the first continent. So I'm wondering if there's going to be a bit to go on the second, or I guess there might be a bit more to the north that we haven't explored on the first continent.
To answer a question in chat from the Rud, I'm sorry, I'm terrible with names. Where can I see the standings? So the Discord that we have has a link to the Google Docs spreadsheet that was just put up by Bantheranos, and it has a couple of different tabs underneath there. One of them shows the tournament standings. Also, we have the official schedule there and things of that nature. And we start seeing lots of swamp wandering around here. So this first continent, it's kind of a bear to navigate.
Yeah, fortunately they got that heal spell at level 8. Without it, it would have been much more difficult for the players to travel as far as they need to go. It does feel like there are still some places that open up to the north on this first continent. But meanwhile, it looks like Ryguy is going to take another shot back through the swamp cave to see if he can do a little bit more exploring of the second continent. And ArchfieldMonk has found... Oh, that's coal again, isn't it?
Yep. I was going to say that there is a cave that's west of the of coal. It looks like that might be where the first and second continent, and just to the west, Ryguy sees another town on the other side of the swamp cave, so let's see if he can make it.
We managed to escape the rogue scorpion this time, and if he can also either one-shot the scorpion, yes. So he doesn't have to worry about that enemy using Dragon Lord 2 Breath. And a Spectre, he knows has sleep. This time he's just choosing to run one step away from the town, and it's Remolder. He's going to get keys. This could be a big turning point, and he accidentally steps out of the town.
That's got to be the excitement showing there a little bit. Just because Remolder is huge in this seed. So much that's on that first continent is just key locked.
Alright, well, Ryguy has plenty of money. He'll be able to buy all 6 keys that can fit in his inventory. There's one chest locked behind 2 doors here in the town of Remolder that he'll be able to open up. He'll get a look at one more item shop, perhaps, and then I gotta imagine with the return spell, he's just gonna hightail it back home because he knows that there's 4 chests in a basement in Tanagel and 3 more chests and another basement inside Garenham, just around the corner from Tanagel, where there's who knows what untold riches. But inside the town of Remolder itself, behind those 2 doors, was just another magic key, so he spent 2 for 1.
And that's definitely not something that that I would whine about here, just because you are spending 2 keys, but essentially he only spent 1 key, and he's not leaving that chest behind. So many times we've seen the Stones of Sunlight, the Silver Harp, Erdrick's Token, Erdrick's Sword being in Remolder, and somebody just absolutely forgets about it, and it turns into quite the seed.
And Ryguy choosing to go ahead and try to map out the rest of this continent while he's here and alive. If he takes a death, he'll be back at Tanagel, and if not, he can try to discover if there's anything else important here before he goes back and opens up all those chests.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a play that I definitely like a lot. He's gonna continue exploring, finding another town, and it is the town of Cantlin. So this is the shopping mall of Alfgard, and so he'll be able to check and see if there's coordinates here if he wants to. I think he's a little more interested in what's in the shops, though.
Won't have the money to buy very much, but he can at least take a look at what he might be able to come back for later. But it seems like he is going to go talk to the old man about the coordinates. There are 3 potential items that can appear in various search spots on the map: the token, the Erdrick's armor, and the fairy flute. One of them is in coal, and that ended up being the token. One of them is under the stone man that we saw in Hawksness, and the third is potentially on the overworld. This old man would give the coordinates. It's not necessarily the case that all those locations are going to have something, and in this case, on this seed, sure enough, there isn't an overworld location. The old man says, "Thou must go and fight," signifying that there's no item on the overworld, which implies that the armor has to be in Hawksness, and the fairy flute is going to be somewhere in a chest.
Yep, absolutely. Ryguy, just making use of quick death warp here, is going to check out the treasury in Tantagel. I would imagine that we see him check the basement as well. So he's going to spend a couple more keys here, but he does pick up the death necklace, some gold, so he does have a gold grind for the silver shield that he saw in Cantlin, torch and an herb, so some decent stuff in the treasury, but overall kind of a meh at this juncture here.
But yeah, with that gold in the bottom left, they will be able to set up a gold grind later if he wants to buy more equipment. And yeah, there's some, going from no armor to full plate could definitely be good, especially if you're going to have to take out a stone man eventually in order to get Erdrick's armor. But downstairs from Tanagel, we discovered the Jerk Cave. So Harp Cave was just right outside Tanagel, and the Jerk Cave is right underneath. So it's going to be easy once they acquire all those story items to put them all together to get the rainbow drop.
Yep, so we have 2 caves so far that we haven't seen. We have not seen the Vanilla Stone of Sunlight. And then we also have the Mountain Cave. So the cave back here in Garrenham has a 50-50 shot of being the Mountain Cave, which would be an excellent spot to set up a gold grind.
And in the back of Garrenham, I missed the first chest. The other two were wings and herb.
And we have the bonus cave here. So there is Erdrick's sword, though. So no need for the flame sword there, as that's going to increase Ryguy's attack power by an additional 25 points.
All right, that's a big find, and once again, it's the advantage of having those keys. He had all of those locations and chests available to him, and sure enough, the last of the big set that came open ended up holding the big stick. And so now Ryguy has a big lead in terms of equipment.
Yeah, that's definitely true. He's going to head back over to the second continent, which I definitely agree with. I think that cave that we saw west of Cole is indeed going to be on the second continent. I think there's a realistic possibility of that.
And it's also possible that he might just go back into the grave and set up a gold grind out of there, since he already knows that location, and that would enable him to easily be able to get enough money for full plate armor. Or there was the large shield that he saw in Cantlin. There was magic armor over there as well, I believe.
Yes, I believe I saw magic armor over there, and I definitely for sure saw the silver shield. It was in the lower shop in Cantlin, so that would be a really good move for him, especially seeing as how now we know that the armor has to be in Hawksness.
Yeah, and given the limited set of spells they have, and the relatively limited hit points, and lacking in any kind of particularly obvious spot to grind, getting as much equipment as possible so you can take down the Stone Man as early as possible seems like a reasonable thing to want to do.
Yeah, Ryguy picking up level 9 will learn the spell of Outside, which ArchfieldMonk has already learned. ArchfieldMonk continuing to explore on the first continent. So looks like we're going to see what the rest of the continent holds over on his side here.
Yeah, and he's been very tenacious in terms of killing enemies, and so he's managed to maintain an experience lead thus far. But now that Ryguy has Erdrick's sword, we might see that experience lead start to evaporate over time. We'll see.
Yeah, Ryguy just skipping over the town of Cantlin and the grave there, so I think that he's on the hunt for that last cave. He knows that last cave has to be in the mountain cave. It's fairly easy to set up a gold grind, provided the enemy is nice to you, out of the mountain cave. So this is a pretty respectable play. He's keeping experience flowing and keeping exploration flowing to solidify a lead here should he take it, which he has.
And actually, he also already knows what enemies are going to be in the mountain cave, because the first floor of that mountain cave has the same enemies as the swamp cave, which he's already been in. And the second floor of the mountain cave has the same enemies as the top of the grave, which he's already been in. So other than the Spectre with Sleep and the Magiwyvern, who's kind of a medium tough enemy, I don't know if there's anyone too scary in there that he's seen.
Well, and he has taken down a Magiwyvern. That Magiwyvern has the spell of Hurt, and it looks like it's a 50-50 shot on which one it casts. So that's a pretty decent enemy, actually. Fairly easy to grind off of, for sure.
Looks like Ryguy is stopping back in Cantlin. He's just going to grab whatever cheap equipment is available, in this case a chainmail and a small shield. That'll give him a little bit of added defense, which he can use for trying to do the exploration he's up to. But it turns out that that little northeast corner ended up being a dead end, but there's one more northeast corner that he can still explore up there, I think.
Yeah, and that opens up a little bit, but that's where he ran into a star wyvern the first time that he explored over here. So some tougher enemies up here, but he's got a little more agility to work with. He's pretty close to being a 50-50 coin flip with running away from those star wyverns now.
All right, but it looks like it's a dead end over there, and so he's going to return. Meanwhile, over on ArchfieldMonk's side, he has reached I believe he has found the mountain cave somewhere else on the first continent.
Yeah, that definitely looks to be the case indeed.
So if there happened to be a key in here, we've already seen one of the keys locked up in Remolder, and there's 3 keys randomly that could be in key chests. If he happens to find a key in here, he might be able to get himself access to keys and set up the gold grind all at once if he gets really lucky here. So we'll see what are in the 5 chests in Mountain Cave. The first one contains the Stones of Sunlight, another one of the key plot items.
And there is the silver harp, gold in the other chest that is sitting right next to it. So Mountain Cave with all of the goodies. And it looks like Ryguy has continued venturing south through the swamp that was southwest of the castle.
All right, gold in that 4th chest, and then a cursed belt in the 5th chest. And so sadly, ArchfieldMonk didn't manage to find a key. So it seems like we are key locked on Remolder until he manages to go through the swamp cave and then head a little bit to the southwest to find Remolder. He's not going to have access to keys. But those 2 key plot items that he got at a mountain cave still kind of get him ahead in terms of the story progression versus Ryguy.
Yeah, absolutely, but it's only a matter of time before Ryguy picks up that location. That's kind of the thing that I always kind of think about, is if I find a location that took me a while to find, okay, somebody probably found it earlier, but I was busy exploring elsewhere, so who knows? I could have seen something that they haven't. So that's something to always bear in mind.
That said, as we called out before, while Archfield has been searching and doing that cave, Ryguy's extra attack power has probably contributed to the fact that he has now taken the experience lead. He's already up to level 10 with a little over 1,500 experience, whereas Archfield is still at level 9 with 1,200 and something, but he finds the town of Breckenry, so this will be a chance to check out the shop. Maybe he can pick up a large shield or something else that'll be useful in the long term over here.
Yeah, absolutely. So once again, coming back to what we still need to find. So we know where the heart traded is. We know where the jerk cave is. So we have immediate access to the rainbow drop. We still need Erdrick's armor, though, which we know is in Hawk's Nest, thanks to Ryguy. But that's pretty much it. I think we found everything else.
Yeah, between the 2 runners, we've seen pretty much everything outside of Sharlock. And yeah, Archfieldmonk just picked up a small shield and chainmail, and so basically in terms of armor, he's kind of equipped the same way as Ryguy, but obviously still lacking Erdrick's sword because he's still lacking keys. But at this point, I think he's finished that entire peninsula of the area where he was. And so he's going to go ahead. Smart thinking, remembers that he needs to trade in the harp now that he's back at the castle, and I have to imagine now that he knows where Swamp South is, and he's going to travel on through to try to explore the second continent at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. Ryguy sees Breckenary there on the west side of his screen there, So he's pretty close to the mountain cave as well. He's going to pick it up here in very short order.
And I guess ArchfieldMonk is doing that southwest portion of the first continent that Ryguy just saw that Archfield hadn't seen. So unfortunately, it's going to be a little bit of time yet before Archfield finally gets his hands on those keys.
Oh, Ryguy takes a death that's going to cost him quite a bit of time. It takes probably a good 2 minutes to get to where he was at.
And that was just before the mountain cave, right? So he doesn't have either of those key items. Yeah, he definitely has to walk all the way back there. So this will give Archfield potentially some time to try to catch up, and exploration, if not experience.
Yeah, absolutely. The big thing here right now that I'm seeing as I'm looking over things is we're at level 10 on Ryguy's screen. So that's the largest level that we have, but we have 90 MP. So tons of MP.
Can I borrow some of that and turn it into strength?
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. Only 40 strength, though. So we're definitely going to be seeing these runners grind quite a bit after we get done with story collection.
And I already forgot, we did get a look at what monster was in the swamp cave, I think, but I can't remember who it was. Or am I making it up?
I don't remember either. And those rogue scorpions just are not having it today. They are going for MVP just as much as the Star Wyverns have been. Ryguy sent back to the castle again by another rogue scorpion.
Ryguy has at least crossed a threshold here at level 10, though. With 73 maximum hit points, if he keeps his hit points at max, at least he can survive at least one round of Dragonlord 2 Breath from some of the, at this point, myriad enemies that have it. So if he does happen to get surprise attack, that could be useful for him to try to keep his hit points all the way up at max, just so he doesn't get wiped by that. But nevertheless, yeah, it does seem to be other enemies that are just kind of taking him down in 2 and 3 hits at a time.
And here we see ArchfieldMonk picked up his half-plate armor. So very interesting play there. He's got plenty of defense to work with. I imagine that he's headed for the second continent at this point.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. It looks like he's trying to walk around the swamp right now. I can't remember if he has seen everything that is to the east of Sharlock. That might be the only bit of the first continent that he hasn't seen. I can't remember for sure.
He wants that large shield.
Ah, good job for him to make a note of the fact that it was there available in coal and that he had the money. And so with that, his defense points are now up to 49, which is not bad. And he's heading further to the northeast on the first continent. Maybe there's a little bit out here that he didn't see before. But Ryguy did make it back finally to the mountain cave, and so he's going to start picking up the Stones of Sunlight, and then down on the second floor he can pick up the harp if he can manage to stay alive.
Shouldn't be too big of an issue. We didn't see too terribly much in these zones that are going to be super threatening to him right now. The Magi Wyvern is going to be dealing plenty of damage to him, as is the Green Dragon that's going to be on the bottom floor. But other than that, I don't think that this is going to be too terribly challenging, seeing as how he can run away from most of it.
Yeah, both Far Runners at this point have enough agility that they're favorites to run from pretty much everyone except for a Red Dragon or an Armored Knight. Speaking of a Red Dragon or an Armored Knight, have we seen either of those enemies this seed?
We have not.
So there's still some big unknowns potentially in Sharlock in store for us in the future.
Or maybe this will be one of those magical seeds where neither one of them exist.
I know that I have seen one such seed, but I feel like only one in the hundreds of seeds I have played or watched.
Yeah, it's definitely a rare thing that we just don't see those harder tier enemies. Well, with the way the seed is going, though, I think that we might see some gimped fun police if we do run into them, just because there's so much Dragon Lord breath floating around, that kind of thing. So hopefully. And there's the cursed belt that takes the place of the token on the search spot.
And an Axonite once again, sending ArchfieldMonk back home. He really needs at some point to get to that second continent, get those keys in order to get this party started. Otherwise, he's going to be falling further behind. Meanwhile, Ryguy is getting close. No, he took a death. I see. He took an intentional death for the gold grind.
Yep, he picked up all the chests in the mountain cave, so now he has access to everything, and he knows that the silver shield is in play, so we're going to be seeing him pick up some gold here.
And so if you are in Ryguy's position at this point, you know that you have to take out the Stone Man. Obviously, you're going to get the Silver Shield. Would you also get magic armor, or would you just get full plate? Like, where do you draw the line in terms of the gold grind here? I suppose I would just go for the magic armor, because it's only going to take an extra 30 seconds to grind a few more bits of gold out of this chest.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I would disagree. I would disagree because the magic armor isn't really going to give you that much of a benefit. I think that the magic armor and the full plate have the same defense value, right?
It's only just a matter of if that Stone Man ends up casting Hurt More or something that it might actually matter. Yeah, it's going to give the same amount of defense for just a melee attack.
But it looks like Ryguy is playing it safe. He's going to pick up his magic armor as well, by the looks of things here, so...
But yeah, for those who don't know, basically the way the game works, it can only keep track of at most 8 chests that the player has opened at a time, and the way it was programmed, it only resets that list of 8 chests when you reach the overworld. And so Ryguy was inside the mountain cave rather than the overworld, opened 5 chests, then took a death, which sent him immediately back to the throne room, which is also not the overworld, where 3 chests have already been opened. That makes 8, and so any further chests that he opened didn't get disappeared by the game, and so he was able to retake the gold chest over and over and over again, filling up on money so he can now go buy some good stuff.
And to answer a question in chat, yes, we have found Hawksness. Hawksness is just west of the Swamp Cave, which is right here, so it's fairly close to home.
One thing I didn't notice Ryguy go and pick up the rainbow drop, which was the jerk was underneath Tanatal Castle. So it's a relatively minor thing, but I guess I would call that kind of a minor error because he was just in Tanatal Castle and didn't think to do that little piece of homework while he was there. He'll definitely have another opportunity to do it again later, but that would have been a good thing to go ahead and clear off his docket.
Yeah, and Hawksness is pretty close to Tantagel, so I don't think that it loses a terrible amount of time here, but it definitely is a time loss. But at least the Heart Trading Cave is right next to Tantagel Castle.
Yeah, and yeah, chat is pointing out that he hasn't turned in the harp yet, so yeah, he would actually have to do both of those things, and so he'll have a chance to do them in short order, I'm sure. In fact, he's going to turn in the harp right now.
Meanwhile, ArchfieldMonk has found Cantlin and is checking out the shops there currently. And him having all 3 story items, I think he'd just end up noping out of the grave if he went in there. I guess he's still looking for the
yeah,
for
the sword, he doesn't
well.
know where it is, and yeah, the top 3 chests at least are pretty quick to get to, and so I think he would probably check those if he discovers the grave out here. But yeah, he's at this point. Also, we could get a key in the top 3 chests in the grave, so that's another reason he wants to go in there. From his point of view, we know that there's not a key there.
Yeah, absolutely. So it looks like he's avoiding the cave, though. He's definitely on the hunt for Remoldar. That's the only town that he hasn't seen now, so he knows it's got to be here somewhere, and he's going to find it right away.
Yeah, and yeah, the cave he was just avoiding right there was the swamp cave entrance that he came in. And so assuming he can make it a couple more steps, he's going to find Remoldar, and now he has a chance to start catching up.
Yeah, and once again, experience not too far apart. We're about 300 difference right now, so not too terribly far apart. So this is still a very, very close race. Both runners, in terms of exploration, are pretty much going to even out here relatively quickly. Ryguy with a small experience lead, but depending upon what they choose to grind, that could go either direction.
Yeah, and if you're ArchfieldMonk, I have to feel like since Remoldar was the last town you found, and there's a bunch of things you need to go revisit now for keys, obviously he'll be able to get kind of all this key homework and doing all the stuff in Tanagel and Garenham done relatively quickly, probably in the next 2 or 3 minutes. But at that point, I have to imagine that with just half plate and a large shield, now that he knows the sleep spell, maybe he'll just go take a flying stab, because he's going to pick up Erdrick's sword once he gets to the back of Garenham. He'll just go take a stab at the stone man and see if he can get lucky with it and possibly skip right ahead to Erdrick's armor. Although I guess he doesn't know that there's no coordinates in Cantlin.
Yeah, that's true. In from what I've seen of ArchfieldMonk racing, he's not a guy that likes to leave things behind. So I'm kind of surprised that he didn't pick up the coordinates. Maybe he's just going to make a breakneck dive for the...
He didn't have keys when he was in Cantlin, so he wasn't able to pick up the coordinates at that point.
Oh, well, what I was saying was going back to Cantlin to see if the coordinates were there before noping out, returning home.
I see. Got it.
So this may play out to be in his favor, though, if he decides to go check out Hawksness after picking up Erdrick's sword.
Yeah, I think if he gets reasonably lucky with sleep, with Erdrick's sword, and the attack power is still not going to be great, but he has a chance at winning that battle. It really comes down to the sleep luck for the most part. Meanwhile, speaking of it, Ryguy is over there in Hawksness fighting the Stone Man right now.
Yeah, and CD Improv pointing out some brilliant routing here by ArchfieldMonk. He was able to check the treasury and go and knock out the jerk at the same time. Granted, that was probably a little bit of luck, but for the most part, that's pretty good routing on his part. Just remembering that he's got to do this while he's here.
And I like how you phrase that: knock out the jerk, rather than just take the rainbow drop. He's just going to punch him in the face. But yeah, he's the first person to pick up the rainbow drop. No, I guess Ryguy also picked up the rainbow drop, and I wasn't paying attention because our tracker already has that marked. Okay, so yeah, he's really getting the homework done very quickly. He's going to be extremely pleased to discover Erdrick's sword here in the Sunstone's Cave, Free Stuff Cave in the back of Garenham. And yeah, I have to imagine at this point, just based on the routing, that he will head over to Hawksness and give this a try.
Yeah, and we see Ryguy making an attempt on a Stone Man grind. I don't know how I feel about this, because at maximum their damage is going to be somewhere around 20, 25, or 26. So this is going to be a painfully slow grind, and we haven't seen what's on the spike tile in the Swamp Cave, as far as I know. Yeah,
at the same time, he is already here. He does have the spell of sleep, and without Hurt More, his low attack power is going to be relatively poor against any of the possible grinds. And so those are kind of the trade-offs that I think are in play. But that said, Swamp Cave is very nearby. But then again, I'm not entirely sure if perhaps he did check out what was on it and we just forgot about it over in the Swamp Cave. But maybe at some point we'll see ArchfieldMonk give us that answer as well.
Yeah, it's definitely a possibility. Who knows? I think that I agree with what Ryguy's doing. Like, logically, it makes sense. But once again, just kind of coming back to we're going to be here for a while. So sit back, grab some popcorn, and we'll knock down some snowmen on Ryguy's side.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Eventually, one imagines if Hurt More comes at a reasonable level, both the runners have the rainbow drop, and so they could go take a look inside Charlock once they get Hurt More and perhaps manage to find... Well, there were desert tiles with star wyverns. I'm trying to think of what else was in that zone. If Hurt More shows up, there might be a potentially decent overworld grind available as well.
Well, if we pick up the Hurt More spell, I would imagine that we see a check for the spike tile over in Swamp Cave, just because Hurt More makes so many of those enemies viable. You have the Armor Knight, you have the Axe Knight, which the Axe Knight not as favorable. But we also have blue dragons, red dragons, things of that nature that can be available over there. So 2 out of 4 of the remaining chances are Hurt Moreable. So we'll probably see a check there.
But yeah, we're seeing very good play out of these 2 runners so far, I would have to say. ArchfieldMonk obviously had a little bit less exploration luck in terms of a little bit more of the bottleneck of getting all the keys. But yeah, both runners have settled into what appears to be a pretty good grind for right at the moment. And yeah, basically are in grind and go mode at this point.
Yeah, and this is one of those things where the Stoneman being a underrated grind. I mean, I think that this is going to be the play that's going to carry them for quite some time, unless we see something ridiculous like 35 strength or something like that.
Well, we're definitely going to get a chance to get a look at it next level over here on Ryguy's side, since the next Stoneman he kills is actually going to bring him to level 12. Maybe we'll discover that one of the new spells makes another option available. A bunch of hit points that I just saw, but it doesn't look like he gained any new spells.
Nope, new spells, but we did pick up 7 strength as well, so that's going to move our attack power up a little bit. That's going to allow us to do a maximum, I think it's 31 or 32 damage to the Stoneman now. I may be remembering his agility score wrong.
I think the Stoneman has 40, I want to say. Or is it 60? It's one of those 2. I think it's 40. But strength 48 at level 12. This is looking right now like it's likely to be a seed that's going to push the players past level 16, which is kind of a typical go mode kind of level, just based on the low strength.
Yeah, the low strength. Agility still being pretty kind. We're at 66 agility right now, but we're going to see that start tapering off as we increase in level here. So hopefully the agility holds out so that way that Charlock is just a little bit easier for these guys to handle.
And yeah, looking over on Ryguy's side at level 10, he only had 46 agility, so obviously levels 11 and 12 were pretty kind with the agility, and so that's probably one of the reasons that ArchfieldMonk ended up taking a death to the Stoneman before. 20 agility difference is a 10 defense power difference, and so that's going to matter in terms of how much damage the Stonemen are actually going and punching our runners.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the big thing is, I think the big thing that kind of separated it was that Ryguy had excellent luck with his sleep spell, whereas Ryguy not so much. And I think that ArchfieldMonk is actually
Yeah,
fighting the
he's in the
spike
swamp
tile.
cave. Yep, he's in the swamp cave, and it's also a stone man on the spike tile over there. And so it's stone man versus stone man for the grind. And so, yeah, this is definitely now, if you enjoy watching Stone Man death, then stay riveted to your seat. If you need to take a quick break to get a glass of water or some chips or something, now is not a bad time.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing that I really like here, though, is that this works to Ryguy's advantage. If Ryguy hasn't checked the spike tile, he hasn't wasted the time looking for that spike tile. However, I do like the swamp play, because the swamp play, you just cast outside when you're out of resources and you're like 10 or 11 steps away from Remoldar. You go down to Remoldar, you refill your resources, and then you come straight back to the grind. And I mean, that would be the more efficient grind, I would think.
Yeah, and at this point, I feel like they are also strong enough. It's the case that we saw people dying to rogue scorpions in that desert between Remoldar and Swamp North, but at this point, they're probably strong enough, especially with Erdrick's armor, that that's no longer really a risk. In fact, it could be a good thing to kill a rogue scorpion along the way and pick up the 70 experience that it's going to give you. So, yeah, I think you're right in terms of that will be faster in terms of the in trips.
Yeah, the path over to Remoldar, the most dangerous enemy that we've seen on that path has been the path that ArchfieldMonk took. He ran into a green dragon just south of it. But we're a favorite to run.
ArchfieldMonk is checking out an overworld grind. He's found an area of desert that has Druin Lord, which is an enemy that he could... I guess he's almost always going to two-shot it. He might, if he gets really lucky, manage to one-shot it. There's a werewolf in this zone as well. He's definitely looking at alternate possible grinds.
Yeah, and I think that most of the stuff that we've seen on the overworld just isn't going to compare to having an encounter every other step of the way. I think that the Stoneman is definitely going to be the way to go here, just because you're going to be picking up 155 experience per encounter. Each encounter is going to take roughly 4 to 5 swings, and then you just step off and step back on. Whereas Archfield, he's trying to find an encounter and is run a good 20 tiles in between there.
Yeah, I think you're right. Once again, if Hurtmore does turn up, Druin Lord would go down in 1 hurt more. The werewolf might go down in 1 hurt more. And I can't remember if the Star Wyvern was over there, who has a possibility of going down in 1 hurt more. And so I imagine if he's trying to remember back to those possible enemies for something to come to later. But yeah, right now where they're at, it does feel like it's the case that the Stone Man is a much better thing. Yeah, the sleep is only going to land on the Star Wyvern, 50% of the time? Whereas the sleep is going to land on the Stone Man 15 out of 16 times.
Oh, really? It's only 1 out of 16?
No, I said about 50%, I thought. Isn't it?
Oh no, I was talking about the Stone Man. I thought the Stone Man was 3 out of 16, but I might be wrong on that. Ryguy picks up Hurtmore. And ArchfieldMonk continuing his overworld grind, so we'll see how that works out for him. The sleep spell is not going to be too terribly effective against just about anything that's in this desert. Druids, if I remember right, the Druid Lord has 5/16 resistance.
I just went and looked it up. The Stone Man is actually 2 out of 16. Magic Wyvern is as well.
All right, well, we'll play Price is Right rules, so you were right.
I was happy just to split the difference and average it together. And then what were we just saying? The Druid Lord?
So the Druid Lord was a little fuzzy on his sleep resistance. I want to say it's like 5 out of 16 or something like that.
I'm seeing 15 out of 16 sleep resistance on the Druid Lord.
Well, I had the 5 right.
Yeah. That's something that's in... I guess those are just like usual stats, aren't they? I don't know that Randomizer changes any of those.
No, the only resistance that is randomized is the enemy's stop spell resistance in this particular flag set. And ArchfieldMonk finding a metal slime in Hawk's Nest.
Sadly, he doesn't have 50 more attack power so that he could one-shot it.
Yeah, that'd be nice, but then again, that grind would be pointless at that point.
Touche. Well, he'd still need to grind to get some hit points. Ryguy's up to the point to where he has Dragon Lord qualifying hit points, potentially, but Archfield's still only sitting there at 78. It does seem like the levels are starting to trickle in more of the stats, and so what was looking kind of pretty bad at 11 and 12 is starting to be okay at 13, although the strength still has a ways to go.
Yeah, based off of what we're seeing here, it's probably going to be a Death Necklace seed in order to finish off the game. With our current strength being as low as it is and our HP starting to grow pretty decently, I would imagine that we're going to see the Death Necklace come into play here. So for those of you who don't know, in the randomizer, the Death Necklace is going to grant 10 extra attack power at the cost of 25% of your maximum HP. So it's a little bit of a risk versus reward thing, but it can be enough to push you over that theoretical edge to finish out the game.
And I think possibly I just did see ArchfieldMonk successfully kill one of the metal slimes. I saw 255 go by, and now he's sitting on the desert tiles in Hawk's Nest. There's a metal slime, there's a rogue scorpion, and what other enemies are here in Hawk's Nest? There's the metal scorpion, right?
I think those are the only 3 enemies that we actually seen here.
Yeah, that's all that I remember so far.
And it looks like Ryguy is headed in the direction of Sharlock Castle, maybe trying to grind his way down just to see if level 14 is enough. That's a very distinctive possibility. That Hurtmore coming into play, he's going to be Hurtmoring things. Maybe just grinding in Sharlock.
All right, but an hour and 13 minutes in, Ryguy steps into Sharlock and finds a stone man, because we haven't seen enough of those yet. Hey, there's a red dragon.
He beat me to it. So red dragons have Hurtmore. So that's actually really good for our runners, because the Hurtmore is going to do significantly less damage than the red dragon is going to do to us by physically attacking. So, the maximum damage for Hurtmore anyways.
Yeah, sadly, Ryguy still doesn't have learned the stop spell. He'll pick that up somewhere before level 16, along with all the other spells that he's missing. That might enable him to take less damage during the red dragon fight, and also without the spell of heal more, it means he has to do a whole bunch of heals after that fight in order to get his hit points back to be able to be prepared to fight another monster here. And look, it's the other one of the monsters that we mentioned that we hadn't seen.
Alright, so I owe a sincere apology to both Ryguy and ArchfieldMonk, because I pretty much jinxed this when I said they're not going to exist at all.
Yep, it's the commentator's curse. I have made bad things happen for runners in a number of the races I've been calling as well.
But we do see Star Wyverns here, and the really good thing about the Armored Knight that we had kind of mentioned before is that they're susceptible to Hurtmore. So they're the less stringent version of the Fun Police, so the runners aren't going to be struggling with them near as much as they are the Red Dragon.
And so I like the creativity that ArchfieldMonk has had in terms of trying to find a grind, but it's one of these usual cases that I've seen in a number of races in the last few weeks, which is when you can't decide if there's a great grind, a Stoneman on a spike tile is almost always better than the alternative.
Yeah, and I gotta say, ArchfieldMonk taking swings at this metal slime, I don't know that this is gonna benefit him enough to make up the ground. But Ryguy grinding in Sharlock, he's gonna be seeing a similar encounter rate, just with enemies that are gonna be granting more experience. So it's kind of that toss-up trade-off, and Ryguy being about 2,000 experience points in the lead at this point, we're definitely I'd say that at this point it's his race to lose, just because metal slimes aren't a guaranteed encounter here, and all of the other enemies are just not giving enough. Was that another 30 MP? Yes, it was. Wow. So MP being extremely gracious. 62 strength now, so we're still low on strength, so we're going to keep going. We didn't pick up any spells other than the hurt spell.
And we didn't pick up much in the way of hit points either. So we're still pretty far away from the death necklace as well. So despite some other increases, still missing the key spell of heal more, and still missing either the strength or the hit points to put on the death necklace to get more strength, which would enable us to get anywhere near being able to do more than tickle the toes of the Dragon Lord.
Yeah, absolutely. And Nick's guy kind of poking some fun at the amount of attacks we would need to fight the Dragon Lord right now. And 75 attacks at his minimum HP would be correct. So very, very funny that strength is the thing that is super lacking in the seed, whereas most of our other stats are in the green.
The insane amount of magic points is also going to be, I feel like, while I know how to do the math, I've played enough races that I have more of just kind of a gut instinct from looking at the various numbers to know it's going to prepare me for the Dragon Lord. But on these seeds that have more than 120 magic points, and I'm going to be diving Sharlock with more than 15 Healmores, I find that all of a sudden my usual math kind of goes out, or my usual gut instinct goes out the window, and I really need to try to math it out. It's also the case that even if we don't get enough hit points to where the Death Necklace comes into play, even if they just get up to, say, 120 hit points, with all these Healmores, it'll be a very long fight and a chance to get a number of double attacks potentially during the long fight if they get some good Healmores.
Yeah, absolutely. ArchfieldMonk picking up level 13 and seeing that it was a rather large disappointment as well. And he's trying super hard to stay in it. Closed up a little bit of the experience gap as Ryguy had to walk back, but still about 1,800 experience points behind. So we'll see how this pans out. He has caught up a little bit, but is it going to be enough? That's kind of the question. So, on terms of the Dragon Lord math and things like that, I just go, okay, we've got 15 Healmores. Can I do it in 15 attacks? That's basically the math that I use. But you guys have better records than I do, so I'd say trust your gut.
Yeah, it's definitely difficult when you're going to be having to really kind of calculate the odds and the number of doubles you're going to get. And also, obviously, we still haven't seen, I guess on Ryguy's side, we've at least gotten a look at the Red Dragon and the Armored Knight, and it didn't seem like either of them has wielding anything too particularly fearsome. But you also have to try to guesstimate how many Healmores you're going to have to spend on the way down during the dive. The one thing that's good for ArchfieldMonk, especially as he now seems to have maybe settled into the Stoneman grind, is that the last couple of levels, even though they still haven't provided a whole lot, the last couple of levels going from 11 to 13 was a significant amount of strength. His strength is up to 59. It's now just a few points behind Ryguy, whereas a couple of levels ago his strength, I think, was still in the 40s, and so it was making the Stoneman be a really long thing to do. And so it might have just been that he didn't want 5 and 6 round combats with the Stone Man, and that's why he was kind of flailing around in other places in Hawk's Nest trying to pick up the experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And seeing him move over to the Stone Man grind, that's just kind of fueling the fire here. He's a fairly reasonable favorite to start picking up some experienced position on Ryguy, seeing as how Ryguy is just going to be exhausting his resources in Charlock, and then he has to walk all the way back up to it. Now, granted, ArchfieldMonk is going to be doing the same thing in Hawk's Nest because there's nothing nearby Hawk's Nest, but it's a lot shorter of a walk, and he has guaranteed encounters.
And Ryguy's also not diving. I think at this point, if I were grinding Charlock, I would be diving just so I get information about what's on the middle floors and potentially what's on the bottom floors. I feel like Ryguy just sitting here is in an inferior grind. He's already got his information, so he's not gaining any information. And there's pretty much no hope that level 15 is going to be enough. Like, you would need like a miracle amount of strength or hit points or some combination therein for level 15 to do it. So given that he's going to have to grind another couple of levels, I feel like he should head back to the spike tile.
Absolutely. So that attack power of 1 of 4 is going to put them in prime position to be for-turning a Stoneman pretty consistently. And once again, talking about what's near the spike tiles, both of our runners seem to have forgotten that Remolder is just steps away from the Swamp North entrance, and that just makes that grind super, super effective in comparison to something that you're exhausting your resources and then having to walk all the way back.
And meanwhile, I'd speculated about this before. ArchfieldMonk has returned to the desert. It has Magiwyvern. It has the Jerkbird, the Star Wyvern. He's definitely going to hurt more the Magiwyvern. There was a Druid Lord, but I think it might be in a different zone that's a little bit farther to the east. But this is potentially a good set of enemies, but if it's only those two, even on the desert tiles, 2 out of 5 encounters is not particularly frequent. And so it might not be enough for a hurt more grind to work out in his favor. I also wonder if these same enemies in the same zone are available at the town that's just on the north side over there, so that he'd be able to, or I guess that's Hawk's Nest, isn't it? So he couldn't just pop into the town in order to take it in. Oops.
But just north of the Swamp Cave, we saw Axe Knights, we've seen Rogue Scorpions, Wolves are up there, which those are a little bit lower. Those kinds of enemies up there, being just north of Garenham, wouldn't be a bad idea either. But I'm definitely agreeing that the Stoneman is the grind. Even though I'm not a huge fan of it, that is the grind.
Yeah, but this is one of these key things to where it's definitely not a completely obvious what's going to be the best choice here, and so you're going to see variations among the runners, and we'll just kind of like see how it ends up playing out. But it will be a fun thing to ask the runners about after the race in terms of here in these levels, level 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, how they were thinking about the grind and when they thought go mode was finally going to come in terms of the level and stuff like that. Get in their head.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always nice to get different viewpoints on the same thing. So it's really coming down to, once again, Ryguy having a 2,000 point experience lead. It's not really a contest for him to lose. I mean, ArchfieldMonk is really, really trying to stay in it, but just doesn't have the stats and is struggling to catch up. So maybe we'll see him end up entering Charlock, and with both of them doing the same grind, it just comes down to encounter luck at that point.
Yeah, and I think also we're definitely at the point where if it ends up being kind of an ambiguous go level, or Ryguy manages to get down to the Dragon Lord first, but doesn't quite have the resources or ends up failing on one of the attempts. Archfield right now is looking close enough to where that might be enough for him to be able to kind of catch back up at the end. But it really depends on Yeah, exactly when that level is going to happen. Like, if it's not until level 18 or something before it actually turns out to be really a go mode where either of the players are trying to try to win, then we could still have a number of minutes of play between now and then where the choices that the runners make could make a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that I forgot to mention that makes the Charlotte grind a little bit better of an option is that coal is just to the northwest of it. I completely forgot about that. So that makes this a little bit more viable of a grind. So we'll see what happens here. Ooh, Red Dragon's having 25% heal more. So that's going to be a little bit of a pain.
Yeah, that definitely puts a kink in killing those guys. Although, did he learn Stop Spell yet? I was going to say, if you want to go ahead and try to block the Hurt More as well, if you try that a couple of times, you discover that the Stop Spell is landing most of the time against the Red Dragon, so that could be a reasonable thing to do. But I don't remember if by 15 Ryguy had finally learned that one yet.
Yeah, no, that's going to be a level 16 spell. He hasn't picked that up yet.
Oh, boy. So, yeah, the Red Dragons. I really hope that we see one of the runners dive down to the middle floors, because maybe they'll find a better set of enemies down there.
Yeah, absolutely. Finding a floor where things like armored knights and star wyverns and things of that nature being much more common, the experience is going to start flowing a lot faster than having to beat your way through red dragons and stonemen.
Yeah, like the ideal floor would be, I guess, like werewolf, armored knight, wizard, and star wyvern in the seed, perhaps. And but yeah, there's still 2 more sets of enemies on the middle floors of Sharlock and on the bottom floors of Sharlock. And who knows, also there's a grind tile down at the bottom floor of Sharlock. They have tons of magic points. Ryguy at level 15 has heal more now. He could choose to dive all the way down to the bottom, and maybe there's an armored knight on the spike tile in front of the Dragon Lord, and he could grind that even potentially.
Yeah, absolutely. And with how much MP they have, that's definitely a viable option as well. But it's just going to come down to encounter luck now, and whether or not a dive is failed, seeing as how both of our runners seem to be in the same mindset as to what needs to be done.
Well, I still think there's a possibility that we'll see one of them change strategy before go time actually comes. But since they're kind of settled in right now, this is probably a good time to remind people who are enjoying watching this that we still have 2 more races that are going to be broadcast later. At 8 p.m. Eastern Time, Mr. Holmes versus Angel FM. That's another battle of 2-0s, and it's going to be broadcast on Randomania 2. And a little bit after that, at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, we have Zarnax42 versus Monsieur Slime, which is going to be on Randomania 3. And then I presume after both of those races are completed, we'll actually have the drawing for the Week 4 matchups.
That is correct. I did see them mentioning that in the Discord. They will be drawing immediately after the race between Zarnax and Monsieur Slime concludes. And I believe that'll be on the same Randomania network. They'll just do it right after the stream and the interview.
All right, and I see that ArchfieldMonk has gone back to the desert to try to grind Magic Wyverns and Star Wyverns again. I think in general, whenever you're bouncing back and forth between this many different grind attempts, that's another, just from my own experience, another signal that says, just sit on the spike tile. Even if it's a stone man, just sit on the spike tile.
Yeah, absolutely, especially if you're not running into anything that I would say is favorable.
I mean, the Magic Wyvern is pretty favorable. They have tons of magic, a single hurt more, 83 experience, 1 round of combat. You can't get a whole lot better than that. However, given that the Magic Wyvern's only 1 out of 5, the Star Wyvern's 1 out of 5, and it appears to be the only 2 enemies that he has left in the zone after Repel, it just means the encounter rate means you're going to be spending sometimes 10 seconds in between battles, and that's where you're really losing time, potentially. Although he did manage to get 3 Magic Wyverns in a row without too many walks in between. So, We'll kind of see. Right now, it's about 9,000 to just under 7,000. So a difference of about 2,000 here at an hour 30 into the match.
Yeah, so ArchfieldMonk has done a really good job with just maintaining experience going. We talked about how Ryguy's definitely has the lead. But even though Archfield is bouncing back and forth between these grinds and trying multiple different things, he's managed to keep the gap even across the board. Since Ryguy took the lead, he's done a very good job of just staying right there with him. So Panthernos, I'm going to attempt that. Typically the way that it works is they draw, and then the runners will put together their own schedules, and those get submitted to the tournament admins, and then it gets placed on the schedule. So they draw first, so that way that we can determine schedules and then set up a time.
And just trying to think ahead in this race, with all the magic that they have, it seems like somewhere on the order of 128 attack power, where you'd be hitting for 7 to 14 against the Dragon Lord, might end up being enough. What's your estimate for how much attack power they're actually going to need in order to finish this one off?
Well, there's a few things that are going to factor into that for me. Obviously, agility has been fairly decent. They have enough HP to where they could have a potential double attack right off the gate. So I'd say that as little as 126 is doable, but 128 would be safe as long as you had maximum resources making it to the bottom.
And yeah, like you said, the agility has been doing well, and so it seems like it's going to need probably another couple of levels, and so we can imagine the agility is probably going to go up even a little bit more, and that really increases the odds the players will make it to the bottom. Something we hadn't mentioned for a while is the fact that Ryguy has the silver shield, whereas ArchfieldMonk is still just running with the large shield, and so he doesn't have quite as much defense power as Ryguy does. I'm not sure that that's necessarily going to matter in the end, because we know that there's more agility coming up, just looking ahead at Ryguy's agility versus Monk's agility, and so he's probably going to have enough defensive power by the time he gets to the Dragon Lord that it's not going to be a big deal, but it might mean that he's going to be taking more damage on the way down during the Charlock dive, and that's the main risk.
They are both actually at the same level now. So looking across the board, that 10 extra defense means that Ryguy is breaking three of the enemies, four of the enemies in Charlock Castle. So a grind on the way down is available to him due to the fact that he's breaking so much more in Charlock, whereas ArchfieldMonk is still going to be taking 20 damage from just about everything in here.
And Ryguy has not tried to dive deeper to see if any of those broken enemies are available to him to grind. So I really feel like this is an oversight on Ryguy's part to not dive down to at least the middle levels, because if there were a lot of werewolves, and I don't remember if green dragons had anything scary on this seed, and the Star Wyvern at this point maybe is going to be broken to him. Well, now he's at level 16, and we're looking at those stats. Got a bit more strength, but it's still not quite there.
Actually, if he made it down there with full resources, this is possible. Yeah, he has almost 18 heal mores. He is super close. 18 heal mores at 4 to 9. He's still a little low, I guess.
124 hit points. He would get doubles too. He's got the defense power. He'd actually get a lot of doubles during this battle, probably just because it's going to be so long. Again, this comes down to where my gut doesn't immediately tell me that it's good, but now as we're talking through the math, he could potentially get like 22 attacks on the Dragon Lord, or maybe even a few more than that.
Yeah, you would need like 22 attacks on average, and we would be fairly close to that, actually. We would definitely need some doubles, but with 124 HP, I think that the doubles are definitely in the realm of possibility.
They're in the realm of probability, I'd have to say. I think at 124 HP is like 1 in every 8 rounds or something. You're probably going to pick up a double, so I'd expect him to pick up 3 doubles probably during the fight.
Yeah, and then you have your first attack, which at this agility is a reasonable chance for a double red off the get-go. So you have your first and last attack, plus 17 guaranteed attacks. So that puts us at 19. So that means that we would need 3 doubles on average to make it happen.
Yeah, I think maybe Ryguy has kind of had these... well, I guess he's just running out of magic, and so he needs to get back to town anyway, but I wonder if he's going to have the epiphany that he's actually in go mode. Yeah, I think he could even spend a heal more on the way down and still be a favorite if he gets to the Dragon Lord with 17 heal mores or whatever he'd still have after that.
So the range of heal more is going to be, I believe it's 80 to 100 HP healed.
And given his 93 defense power, if the Dragon Lord does choose to bite him, the most it would be able to bite for, I think, is 45 or 46, and the range could go all the way down to the mid to upper 20s. And so, yeah, every time he gets a bite, there is a fair chance, unless he's getting low rolls on his heal mores, that he could pick up a double either on that turn or the next turn. Looks like Ryguy is going to fill up on herbs and a torch, and so maybe he is going to finally try a dive.
Yeah, and I would imagine that we're going to see him grind on the way down, just because he was still picking up experience after the fact. So I think we're going to see a grind on the way down, grab that extra safety level just in case. And if he gets enough HP, that puts him in Death Necklace range, and then you're right there. You're at the end of the game. So this is a pretty respectable play. It's definitely going to depend upon what's on the bottom floors, though.
And while I wouldn't do it, I think he could also wear the Death Necklace right now, which would bring him down to kind of like a subcritical number of hit points, but he'd have so many extra magic points to make up for it and be hitting for hard enough that he could afford to do like a double heal more, like 2/3 the time or something. So I think the Death Necklace could also work, could potentially shorten the fight, but if it ends up failing, you end up with the tragic case of all of a sudden you don't have enough hit points to necessarily be able to dive back down and try again. So I doubt he'll put on the Death Necklace unless he gets level 17 on the way down and discovers it has a bunch more hit points.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely a risk that I would say is not worth it at this point. We've seen a lot of low strength. We're just a few fights away from level 17. So definitely putting it on at this point definitely wouldn't help too much. But who knows?
I'm still disappointed now that ArchfieldMonk is also suffering the same way that Ryguy was in terms of not diving Charlock just to see if there's a better enemy set on the middle floors. The worst thing that can happen is you go down there and the enemies suck, but if you get down there and it's, for example, all armored knights, that would be pretty great. You could just throw hurt mores everywhere and get 178 experience after 2 rounds of combat every time. You never know. You might as well take a look.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ryguy making the choice not to beat his way through Red Dragons. Can't say that I really disagree with it, but at 120 or 119 attack power, you're still a pretty strong favorite to take him down in 3.
Didn't they have heal more?
Yes, they do have heal more.
Okay, so yeah, that's the main reason that I think I would choose to avoid the Red Dragons and just run from them with 86 agility. Yeah, I guess it's a bit of a trade-off. I don't remember exactly where you are in terms of whether you're hitting the sweet spot where they're unlikely to use their heal more before you get a chance to finish them off.
Oh, I forgot that they have heal more. That's why. I forgot about that. It all makes sense now.
So yeah, I think Ryguy is making good choices, and given that almost all the other enemies he can choose to attack, and an enemy like this werewolf that's defense broken is basically free experience, I think he's, barring a really bad enemy set, he's going to be a shoo-in to pick up his 12,000 experience he needs for the next level on the way down, and yeah, 17 is probably going to be enough to do it.
And meanwhile, ArchfieldMonk has really closed up that experience gap. We are now less than 1,000, as pointed out by Netsky in chat. So he has been doing a phenomenal job with keeping that experience flowing.
That said, he is about to need to take another inn trip right here. But it seems like he probably has the same thing in mind. Since he's still fighting right now and not taking the inn, he wants to get a little bit more experience so that he's only left with about 1,500 experience left. That's usually a good amount of experience for you to be able to pick up during a Sharlock dive if you're trying to get a final level right before you get to the Dragon Lord. But it looks like Ryguy is just going to be a few minutes ahead of him.
And to answer a question in chat for Johannes Metalum, so on average damage, which Ryguy's average damage right now would be between 4 and 9, so I think that's 7. So at 7 damage, we need 22 or 23 attacks on average to reach the bottom end of the Dragon Lord's HP pool. So it's definitely doable at level 16, but level 17 is definitely going to make it a lot safer, even if the gain is just extra HP or even more MP.
Well, the MP won't help unless he redives, but the strength, like 3 strength, would make a huge difference at this point. 5 hit points is all he would need to make the Death Necklace really come into play and not be something that was going to be a huge penalty. Yeah, there's a lot of things that could just be small differentials here on level 17 that would turn you're probably gonna win, but maybe just at 55% into close to a mortal lock. But we also need to see what's going to be on the spike tile in front of the Dragon Lord, and so that'll be coming up shortly on Ryguy's side. Meanwhile, on ArchfieldMonk's side, I'm surprised. I would go ahead and take the inn right now, rather than continue to fight anyone anymore. You're going to fight on the way down at least a few enemies, and he has only 1,000 experience or so left to pick up level 17. I would go take the inn now, and then just be very choosy about the battles on the way down to get this last 1,000 experience to get up to 12,000.
Yeah, Death Necklace definitely makes this doable, 100%. That 93 HP, though, definitely is doable, but it's risky. The Dragon Lord's max damage being at 47 with the physical. It's going to depend upon breathing and whether or not he's going to breathe all over him or not.
All right, but Ryguy manages to take down the Axe Knight without too much trouble. He still has herbs left. He's getting the next level. It's got 2 power, 5 hit points. Yeah, that's totally Death Necklaceable now. Now he is probably a mortal lock. How often do you see someone go into the Dragon Lord fight with 132 magic points?
It is not very, very likely. In Sigma Fan, even if his heal bars aren't exactly great, with only having 97 HP, he is still a low % chance to have to double heal more here.
And he has lots of extras. He didn't manage to get the opening double, but pretty much every time the Dragon Lord doesn't hit him for 48 after he heals up to 97, he's going to be in good shape. And it's just a matter of if the Dragon Lord gets him down into the teens or single digits, and then his heal more doesn't bring him back up to 97. That's going to be the big risk, is the low heal more rolls.
Yeah, I definitely agree there. Meanwhile, ArchfieldMonk still continuing on his grind down, and spending a little bit of MP so far. Looks like he tried cast stop spell there. So ArchfieldMonk, it looks like he's in pretty good position to be right behind Ryguy here.
And I haven't been counting it out, but it seems like for the most part, Ryguy's heals have all been doing their job well enough. And so even with average or even slightly below average rolls, if all of his heal mores are bringing him back up to 97, I feel like he's a shoo-in.
Yeah, absolutely. Barring a miss menu, I'm pretty sure that Ryguy's got this in the bag.
Just an insane number of magic points here at level 17 with 148. And that's another thing that's just kind of nice about the randomizer. Every seed turns out different, and even though their strength was really poor on this one, the insane number of magic points makes it something to compensate. So that if you just work through the math, you can discover, oh, we only healed up to 95 there, but then the Dragon Lord bites. Hooray.
And get your GGs out. Ryguy has defeated the Dragon Lord.
And ArchfieldMonk will be taking his first loss in Dragon Warrior Randomizer, but still put in a very good fight. He's going to come in just probably 3 or 4 minutes behind Ryguy, I expect.
Yeah, absolutely. He's in pretty good position to finish this up relatively quickly. Ryguy taking that win there is pretty huge, though. He is guaranteed a playoff spot in the brackets, so GG to him, and GG to ArchfieldMonk, who still has a shot at the playoff round.
Absolutely. Based on the play that I've seen out of him today, going in 2-1, he's got 2 more matches, and he just has managed to win one of them. While we talked about it before, there's still a whole lot of really good players who are going to be potentially his opponents in the next round of the Swiss in the tournament. Based on the play that I've seen today, he has a great shot of winning at least one of those. And yeah, thinking back to earlier in this race, Ryguy's exploration caused him to find Remolder sooner, as he did more exploration on the second continent, whereas ArchfieldMonk focused on the first continent at the start, and it turned out to be a keylock seed where the only place that you could get keys was in the town of Remolder. And so that slowed him down a little bit. He managed to make up some of the time with some creative grinding relative to Ryguy in terms of the experience, but it still came up a few minutes short at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is just a race that everybody can learn a little bit from. When there's multiple grinds available like that, it's very, very important to view exactly where things are located at. And I think that's something that really, really held these runners back.
It would have been really interesting if there were a third runner to compare who just sat on the Stoneman tile the entire time, occasionally going outside to the town of Remolder in order to get their magic points back, and then returning back into the swamp cave, just to see how the timing of that grind would have been relative to the rest of this with the players.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's something that's always interesting to think about and see. It's just the different grinds that people pick, and which one is actually the fastest grind, because sometimes it's not always an obvious choice.
Indeed. And I imagine after a 2-hour seed, Ryguy may be taking a quick bio break, but it sounds like he's going to be with us for an interview in a moment. And yeah, I look forward to asking him about the grind.
Yeah, absolutely, and just some route divergence too. He seemed pretty dedicated to the second continent there for a second, and then went and finished exploring the first continent. So, just kind of his thoughts on that exploration there. And ArchfieldMonk knows that this is pretty much a lock at this point. Doesn't have any problem burning Hurtmore to get past the Armored Knight. Puts on his death necklace and enters his 3D fight.
But we are now joined by Ryguy. Ryguy, congratulations. You're going to be making it through to the bracket rounds of this tournament. Tell us what you thought of the seed.
Whew, thank you. Yeah, that was kind of a odd little seed. Like at the beginning, I was very annoyed that everything had abilities. There was Hurtmore and sleeps all over the place, it seemed like. But then I really enjoyed it at the end. Like that Red Dragon having Hurtmore is very nice, and oh man, that Armored Knight with the baby breath. I was so glad when I saw that breath. It only hit for 12. Man, that was wonderful.
Yeah, they definitely seem to be pretty gimped at the end of it there. We actually have been pretty thoroughly discussing the grind options and things that you guys had available to you. So, what are your thoughts on the Stoneman grind versus going over to Hawksness or going over to Sharlock like you did?
Yeah, so I don't know if you saw, but I kind of did a. I got the armor and I started wandering out of Hawksness like immediately. Like, oh, I'm gonna go check Swamp. I'm gonna go check Sharlock. And I realized that hurt more, heal more. Like, I didn't know what I was expecting to find there, what I was hoping to find there. So my thought was, I'm just going to take a couple of these Stone Man. It'll be a little slow, but it's guaranteed encounters at least. And hopefully get some hurt more, heal more. Once hurt more showed up, then I wandered over to Sharlock. But, I mean, I just didn't know what I was expecting to see in Sharlock or in Swamp Tile without hurt more, heal more. So at least I could kill the Stone Man fairly reliably, was what I was thinking anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And the spike tile over in the Swamp Cave was a Stoneman as well, which is a guaranteed encounter as well. And it's also fairly close to a town outside of the northern entrance, Remolder being just west of there. So we were kind of curious as to why you chose Sharlock over the Stoneman grind. Because once you reached level 14, I think it was, you were guaranteed for rounding it, just like you would be the Red Dragon, which you seem to be running into pretty consistently. Granted, the Red Dragon was worth more experience, but Cole seemed just a little bit further away. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to do some run calculations on that Red Dragon and 82 agility. I'm not sure I believe that. But, I mean, I was just thinking that at that point I had hurt more. So I was thinking like, hey, I've got a Stone Man. I've got not a Stone Man, a Star Wyvern. I've got an Armored Knight. I've got a Defense Broken Wizard I can kill here. You know, maybe I could damage race the Red Dragon until I saw that I had heal more, then that was out. The Stone Men are still here too. So I thought there were a bunch of enemies that I could kill pretty quickly. I could mix a Stone Man every once in a while here, but I felt those Star Wyverns, Wizards, and Armored Knights were going to go down faster than the Stone Man grind would have. So that's why I stuck there anyway.
One thing I was curious about was once you were in Sharlock, did you ever consider diving just to the middle floors just to see if there was a more favorable set of enemies down on those floors?
Yeah, I kind of thought about it, but again, like I was thinking, ooh, Archfield just finished, huh? GG's to him. He's not. I was really close, huh? I mean, like I said, there were 3 enemies that I was pretty happy with there, so, and, you know, the Stoneman I wasn't too thrilled with, and the Red Dragon I should have been able to run from, so I was happy enough on the first floor.
And ArchfieldMonk has finished with an official SRL time of 1:54.04. Get your GGs out for him.
And yeah, did end up being a close race, less than 7 minutes apart.
Yeah, absolutely. There's been some really good play on both of your guys' side. So one thing that I kind of want to touch base with you on, Ryguy, is your exploration tactics. You kind of seem dedicated to exploring a part of the map and then just kind of gave up on it, went and did exploring elsewhere, which ultimately led you to Remolder. But what are your thoughts on the overall exploration of the seed?
Oh man, I was wandering all over the place. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it was pretty much like, oh, let's try going north. Oh, I died that way. Okay, let's try going. Yeah, I died that way too. So I feel like I was just kind of doing it based on like where I died. Or the first con was weird because I thought it had a lot of loops. I thought main con had a lot of loops. Or a place where I died and I thought like, oh, that's just gonna loop around. I'll go check something else. I did kind of think I did forget that I had seen what ended up being Mountain Cave, so I ended up stumbling around a little too long for that. But yeah, I think I just passed by Cole by one screen early on, and I missed Remolder. I just didn't walk the right way out of Swamp Cave from Remolder, so I was a little worried that I was late to both those, but I guess not.
Yeah, Remolder ended up being, I think, the last location that ArchfieldMonk did, because he kind of put off going to the second continent until he had thoroughly explored the first, and so he ended up getting the stones and the harp out of Mountain Cave a bit before you did. But it took him a while to get the keys, and so as a result, he had a little bit of time kind of catching up as he was doing all the homework with the keys while you were starting to get ahead on the grind.
Okay, yeah, that was the other thing that worried me was I missed Remolder. Well, I walked the wrong way out of Swamp and missed Remolder, and Remolder essentially gave you keys, which basically gave you the sword, so I was afraid that put me behind. Yeah, I was afraid also dying like 2 steps out of Mountain Cave put me behind too, because that was pretty
right. That was a pretty far walk that you had to go back to. We saw that death. Archfield also ended up going the wrong way when he got onto the second continent, and so he explored over and found Cantlin and the rest before he circled back around and found Remolder as well. And so, despite the fact that you went the wrong way, he also went the wrong way and took longer to get over to that second continent. And so that's what put you ahead on the keys. And yeah, we're now joined by ArchfieldMonk as well.
GG to you, ArchfieldMonk. Well played, Reese.
Thank you, GG to you, Rye. Well done.
Yeah, GG's Archfield. That was really close, especially considering all the evilness that was in that seed. So good job, man.
Yeah, thank you.
So one thing that I'm kind of curious about is that you saw Metal Slimes in Hawksness, and you decided that was the grind to go for there for a little bit. What are your thoughts there? The attack power just really wasn't there, but what are your thoughts there?
Believe it or not, I actually kind of lucked into the Metal Slimes. I didn't remember seeing them in Hawksness my first time through, and I was really just kind of grasping at straws. I knew there were at least Rogue Scorpions there, and I thought, well, that's something. And then there happened to be Wraith Knights and Metal Slimes as well, so it actually turned out to be a really good grind there, I thought, because I didn't really have to go back to town to replenish my resources at all, so I was able to pick up, I think, at least a level and a half just kind of doing that.
Yeah, it was actually really close. You're about 2,000 experience behind when you entered into Sherlock. And while Ryguy was doing his dive, you closed up to the gap to around, I think the closest I saw it was 8,000 experience. So it was indeed a very, very close experience between the two of you for this being almost a 2-hour seed.
Yeah, that's interesting. I feel like really I felt very behind once I realized how close Remolder was to Swamp North, and that it took. I think I full cleared the first continent before I even bothered going through Swamp Cave, and I feel like that was a pretty massive error on my part.
Yeah, absolutely, and the big thing with your exploration and things like that is that you actually had the story item progression lead over Ryguy, because you found Mountain Cave first, and that held both the stones and the harp. So you had access to the Rainbow Drop well before he did.
Yeah, that actually doesn't surprise me too much either. I felt like it was pretty early for that. That entire exploration segment of exploration in which I went to the northwest and picked up Mountain Cave and then kind of staggered out of it with, I think, 1 HP and just kind of stumbled into Brecconary was kind of interesting. I don't really know if I made great decisions in that portion either, but at least I knew that the northwest was clear. And then I think I spent just too long on First Continent, like I said. I should have gone for Swamp once I realized that branch was essentially closed. And then I think I threw myself kind of west of Tandagel a little, 1 or 2 too many times as well, although that helped a little bit on the grind too, because there were at least some enemies over there I could take and I knew they were there.
Yeah, it's always tough with unknown exploration luck. And yeah, the advantage of having the story progression in general, I think, tends not to be as good as the advantage that Ryguy had, because once he did get the keys, he had the sword. And so while he was doing some of that grinding, while he was still walking around, he was gaining experience a little bit more quickly than you were at that point.
Yeah, I figured that had to be the case, and I really, honestly, once I found Remulder and got my keys, I was just like, there's really no way I'm going to win this seed. I thought it was basically out of reach at that point, because I don't know what minute mark it was. I didn't happen to take a note on it, but I knew it was pretty late, and I knew there was a pretty good chance that he would have gone through Swamp and picked up those keys, and I figured that was pretty much ballgame.
It's kind of funny you say that, because I took a death right outside a mountain, I don't know, like an hour and a half in or so, or hour 15 in or something. I was thinking the same thing, like, oh, there's no way I'm winning this. So apparently we both were in really high spirits there in the last part of that race, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it was just so much exploration where I felt like I had to run from every other encounter, if not more than that, and that's just not optimal. So when I found that the sword was, in the Stones Cave there in the back of Garenham, I was just like, oh goodness, if I'd gotten this, half an hour sooner, I would have been able to finish this, maybe an hour 35 or hour 40 or something, maybe even earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, what are your big thoughts on Sherlock? Because Lorgon asked an interesting question about going down further into Sherlock to Ryguy. Did you think about maybe trying to get to a different zone in Sherlock, see if you could find some more favorable enemies?
I did think about it, and in fact, I thought about going a little bit sooner than I did, because I think I took about half, or maybe 3/5 of level 17 before I left.
Yeah, you had about 11,000 or so when you went back to the inn, I think.
And so I kind of regretted that a little bit too. When I saw that Rye had finished, I knew that it hadn't made that much of a difference, but I think it would have been optimal to dive a little sooner. And yeah, to check out some of the lower zones, because I felt fairly confident with the MP that we would have Stop Spell to spare on the Red Dragons, and the Armored Knights weren't especially risky, so I wasn't concerned about getting through. But I did think about scouting to see if the enemies would be a little bit more favorable, yeah.
Yeah, I think Ryguy's final in trip came when he was about 10,500, whereas yours was about 11,000. And so that might have put him another 1 or 2 minutes ahead, because you could be more picky in your choice of battles, but there were plenty of good enemies along the way to pick up probably about 1,500 to maybe even 2,000 experience during the final dive without too much risk.
Yeah, once I started the dive and saw what the zones were like, I was just like, I could have left. Even, I don't know, when I got 16, I could have considered it, but I opted to pick up some more experience, and that did probably cost me a couple minutes. Not the margin of victory for sure, but it would have saved me some time.
Yeah, the other thing that made a really big difference was that Ryguy had the silver shield in comparison to the large shield for you. That pretty much made the fight very, very free for him. Whereas with you, the Dragon Lord was going to be dealing much more physical damage.
Yeah, that was something I thought about too, and I thought as kind of, quote-unquote lucky as I had been to pick up the quest items early, it also meant that I'd basically finished Mountain Cave and Grave, and really didn't I didn't have keys when I finished the Grave, so there was no reason for me to Death Warp and no gold grind to pick up. And I thought about going back because I knew there was a silver shield in Cantland, but it just felt like it was too much time at that point. Once I found the sword, I was just thinking, I've just got to pick up experience and go here. I can't spend the time to pick up a shield.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can't say that I disagree with the decision. It definitely made a difference for Ryguy on the grind down, just because he was defense breaking so many things.
Yeah, I was shocked at how much I was defense breaking, even though I only had a large shield, because the agility just kind of was a steady climb. I don't remember any really huge levels. There might have been a couple, but I assumed that I wouldn't be breaking most things when I checked my stats before I started down on 16 even. I thought, wow, I'm actually breaking some of the easier enemies here if I had a silver shield, but it was obviously too late at that juncture.
Yeah, absolutely. So any final thoughts on the seed before we close out?
No, I think those questions pretty much covered it. Like I said, if I had gone through Swamp sooner, I kind of ducked out of there at the beginning and thought maybe I could go, but if I'd, there was a lot of time there that I spent exploring First Con, and I think I'll just have to be more careful of that in the future, because that was really just kind of a big oversight in my part. So GG's to Rai. Thank you. Thank both you, the Amused Miniature, and Lorgon. Thank you for providing commentary for this one, and for CD for the restream. And I think Ali's tracking, right? Yeah. So thank all of you on the restream team for that, and it's much appreciated.
Yeah, pretty much the same. I mean, other than being shocked that one of the spike tiles was on a stone man, if I never see another stone man spike tile, I'll be happy.
Oh, that was the worst.
Right, I got hurt more. Went to look at Swamp, and I was like, there'll be something great. Oh, it's you again. But yeah, GG's to you, Archfield, and thank you, Lorgon and Amused Miniature, for commentating, and thanks, CD and Ali, for restreaming and tracking. Thank you, guys.
All right, and as a programming note, it turns out that our 8 p.m. match is going to be a quad, Mr. Holmes versus Angel FM, which was already on the schedule, but we're also going to have a Will Wagner and Jay Coper had some technical issues during their match, and so they're also going to be playing the same seed at the same time, 8 o'clock. That's going to be on Randomania 2, and then at 9 p.m. Zarnax and Monsieur Slime are playing on Randomania 3, and after both of those matches complete is when we'll do the drawing for week 4.
Absolutely. So we're going to go ahead and set up a raid over to Mr. Holmes. He is currently practicing for his race in just a little bit under an hour here. So hopefully you guys can enjoy some more Dragon Warrior Randomizer action there. A big shout out to CD Improv and Ali Gerbrap, who is on our tracker and restreamer respectively. Thank you so much. And from myself as well as Lorgon111, thank you for joining us. I hope you guys have a great night, and we will see you again soon.